Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. And in Suj's continued absence, I've gone for a big upgrade this week. Let me introduce you to Jacob Hinchcliffe, our Planet FPL mini league winner last season, who finished 56th, not 56k, 56th in the world. How are you, Jacob?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome, mate. I put it out to you on a podcast. I was like, "Come on!" You were like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll come on the podcast." Tell everyone a little bit about yourself, mate.
So I've been playing FPL for probably about 10 years now. I've never been majorly kind of committed to it. I've always played and been active, but never kind of too involved. But this season just kind of took off really, and obviously did a few things well and got to a pretty decent rank.
Pretty decent rank, nosebleed, mate. Incredible season, mate. You're a gooner, aren't you?
I am indeed, yeah, for my sins.
Dear, thoughts on Arsenal at the moment?
I mean, a bit mixed, slightly kind of more positive couple of days with rumours and things being confirmed. So yeah, I'm getting more optimistic now than I was if you'd asked me a week ago.
Yeah,
But
obviously Zubamendi confirmed. I presume Christian Norgard will come in as well. These Madueke links won't go away, will they?
no, to be fair, I'm not completely against that. I know so many of our fans and so much of what you read online is completely don't want it, uh, like really against it. But I like him as a player, and I think it's a decent would be a decent signing if we were to add on top of that. I think the worry is if he is the winger signing, then I don't think that's enough. But I I wouldn't be against it.
There's no doubt in him the ability of the player, none whatsoever. I think it's just questionable that his best position is the same as Saka, and I keep speculating what does that mean for Wanyeri? He'd probably be a bit nervous about that. I mean, his potential is incredible.
Yeah, I think the club view him as more of a 8 or a 10, but it's yeah. I think if it was at the expense of someone like him, then I can understand why our fans wouldn't want it. And I think the optics of signing another player from Chelsea doesn't help. But I'm here for it.
Are they feeding you or are you feeding them? I've been asking this question lately. I'm not sure. I can't make my mind up.
I think they're feeding us at this point, but
Are they feeding you anything good though, mate?
very well.
And Gyökeres obviously hugely linked over the last couple of days. That looks like it's going to be the forward now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks like it. I think kind of it had really looked like it was going to be Sesko for quite a while, which I was on board with. But I think I'm not against signing Gyökeres, and I think if if you're scoring at that rate anywhere, I think it will translate pretty well. I just think it'll be a bit of a change in style and approach for us, perhaps, but I don't think that's a bad thing.
How do you think that would impact Saka from an FPL perspective?
Um, might lose penalties for a start
Mm.
because Gyökeres has scored a lot of them. Um, but I think it will help overall. I think it will potentially, obviously, it's more routes to potential assists for sure. And I think goal scoring might open up a little bit more space for him, etc. But I don't think it will make him a worse asset.
Gyökeres will be very interesting himself, though. Have you given yourself time to think about what that price might be?
Initially, I thought kind of nine-ish, but I don't know, maybe more. But again, it's not proven in the league.
I'd always overprice these players,
I
though,
would as
personally,
well.
because I think
I'd go,
if he comes in at 9 and he has an Isak season, he's
yeah.
in everyone's team, isn't he?
I'd
Basically,
prefer he came in at 10 plus, but I just don't think it'd happen.
yeah. It will shift a lot of people from thinking, no, I guess on paper at the moment, Saka's best captain game week 2. We might be looking at it being Gyökeres quite quickly, possibly.
Yeah.
It'll shift a few people's thinking. I'll take it 56th is your personal best, is it?
Yeah, by a long way.
Tell us a bit about your FPL history. I mean, have you ever been close to this before?
No, I think the best rank I'd had before was, I think it was 25k, but that was 15, 16. So that was a long time ago.
Wow.
Obviously, a lot less players. And then I got, I think, 27k of 3 or 4 years ago. But yeah, nothing kind of close to this.
We did a podcast a few weeks ago, and me and Suj compared some of our totals from our season. And Suj finished essentially 100k. I finished 50k. You finished 50th. We can have a look at a few bits again now, looking at differences in terms of my shortfall against you. And I think we've already ascertained like exactly where it is. But just to let you know, total points difference. You finished 2,715. I finished 2,542. Your peak rank, the best rank you had during the course of the season, was 42nd in game week 37. I peaked at 5k in game week 7. I'm going to talk about that period a little bit more shortly. And we'll talk about where your lowest was as well, 240k just after that, game week 9. So game week 7, I was 5k. Game week 9, you was 240k. I think we can all guess who had the better season from the end there. I was lowest was 572k at the end of game week 4, not long after a wild card. We both wild carded in game week 3 that we'll come back to. And leave your best game week and your worst game week ranks for a little bit because we're going to cover them. They are over that period towards the start of the season, which is quite remarkable. You had 15 game weeks inside the top million for game week ranks. That's mighty impressive, mate. I had 10.
Hmm.
In terms of sub 5 million ranks, it wasn't much between us. You were 5 times outside the top 5 million, me 6. Captain points, inevitably you scored more points than me, but 757 to 715 is definitely not the makeup of where the shortfall of points is here. I took 28 points in hits during the course of the season, not helped by accidentally activating a free hit chip, basically. You didn't take a single hit all season.
No.
Is that normal?
No, not at all. I'm not. I don't normally play loads of hits, but definitely throughout the season, I'll be looking at probably similar to what you had. To be fair, kind of 7 or 8.
Were you conscious of that because you were sort of fighting around the top 1k for a really long period? Are you thinking anytime I take a 4 point hit here, I know I'm dropping before the week's even begun?
A little bit. I don't know if it's so much that. I think a lot of it was the further I got into the season without having taken one and I was doing well. I was like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I don't need to change what I'm doing. And to be fair, I never really got myself into a position where I needed to. I was lucky in a sense that I never really had loads of injuries or suspensions or things where I had to take hits. So I think a bit of fortune and a bit of good planning.
Would you describe yourself as conservative then?
Yeah, this season definitely, I would say so.
So you wouldn't have a set agenda in terms of how you are. Your play style will alternate based, I guess, where you're at and what you feel you need to do. If a hit's there to be taken, what I'm saying is you didn't have a principle of I'm not taking a hit. I've gone through 30 weeks here. There's no
No,
way I'll take one now. You'd have been open to it if it was the right thing to do.
yeah, definitely. And I've, seasons gone by, I've taken them when I felt like it was necessary. I think this year, and maybe with the kind of extra transfers this year, I got myself into positions where I'd have 2 or 3 on occasions in each week, and then I wouldn't need to.
82 double digit hauls you had. That's over 2 a week. That's going to prove very helpful if you can find them. That's 10 more than what I had. You picked up 30 more points than me on minutes. We think that's essentially down to the fact that I cocked up because of the free hit and obviously couldn't go over the top in terms of the double game weeks. You bench boosted in what we thought was probably going to be the biggest double in 33. Am I right in saying you had 15 doublers?
I think so, yeah, off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
so that would be the minutes difference. Here's where we really found a difference. 100 points extra you got over me in goals. 852 of your points came from goals, only 752 from mine. Now, I sat there with Salah for a lot of the season. I sat there with Isaac for a lot of the season. I'm still struggling to work out how there's such a difference on that. Is that a case? Did you have Chris Wood a lot last year?
I never owned him.
Yeah, so you didn't have Chris Wood the whole season and still finished there.
I think I only had a Forest player once, which was Elanga when he scored. I think he got 2 goals and an assist.
That's a wild difference. 100 points, and we know specifically where it's at, which we'll come back to as well. Assist points, I actually got more than you. I got 3 more points on assists than you. Clean sheet points, I got more than you. 14 more points than you. Bonus points, you had significantly more, which is obvious when you're getting more goals than me, 345 to 302 on bonus points. Again, so that's putting you on a base rate of what's that sort of circa 9 bonus points per game week.
Mm.
It's all helpful and adds up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Save points kind of irrelevant. Goals conceded points, there wasn't a lot of difference between us. Goalkeeper points, I got four more than you. Just on goalkeepers, I noted there was only three occasions where your second choice goalkeeper over the goalkeeper you'd bench scored more than your number one. Did you commonly just have a 4.0 throughout the season then normally?
I think I had Fabianski quite a lot when he got in the team, and I think there were a couple of occasions where I played him over Raya off the top of my head, and it went well. But a lot of the time I just have a keeper that I was forgetting about.
Yeah, I recall playing it. I think they drew 0-0 with Everton. He picked up a
Yeah.
9 or 10 point a flappy. That worked out quite well. Defender points, you got 506 to my 487. It's not a lot of difference. Midfielder points, 1285 to 1282. Next to no difference. Here's the big one. Forward points, I scored 602. You scored 742. Is that down to, did you captain forwards more at all?
No, I think obviously the vast majority of the time I was on Salah. And then from what I can remember of captaining other players, maybe Haaland at the start might be a bit where you didn't have him. But apart from that, no, not really in terms of captaincy.
Yeah, but even that, I had Watkins did all right for me at the start. I had Isak over that period as well. I know you had Isak as well. I was looking through players who scored goals for you. Only five scored more than double digits, and won't be any surprises here. Salah, you got 23 of his goals. Bumo and Isak, you got 17 of them. Palmer 13, Haaland 12, and of course, so much of that was obviously right at the start. Nine from Vissa, seven from Cunha.
Hmm.
Was it just the case you just was you chopping and changing with your forwards quite a lot?
A little bit. I think I said to you before we started recording, I think like I just managed the timing of it really well a lot of the time. I think I had Visser at the right time, I had Cunha at the right time. Um, Isaac got off Haaland at the right time. I think it was just a case of getting off players and getting on players when I should have done.
I mean, you say you got off at the right time, but if you come with Haaland a couple of weeks earlier, it'd be even better, wouldn't it?
Yeah, arguably. Yeah, I could have been a little bit
I
better.
think you finished 95 points off first, I think. Is there any regrets on that? Was it ever in sight or not?
Not really. I think my highest rank was 42nd, but that was in 37.
37.
So I think at that point I'm too far off to really try. I think maybe I could have pushed, but I don't regret it really. I don't think I was ever really in a position to really chase that.
I want to look back at your game week one team from last year. Other than the fact Salah's not in here, it feels I don't think there's anything particularly surprising. There's a lot of players I had. You went Henderson and Fabianski as your two keepers. You had Trent, Pedro Porro, Lewis Hall, Anthony Robinson, and then FPL legend Valentin Barco. For those hoping to see a renaissance of him, he has joined Strasbourg permanently, so I presume we'll all own him as a Chelsea asset this time next year. Bukayo Saka, Diogo Jota, who I started with as well, Emil Smith Rowe, Christopher Nkunku is probably the one that so many went like Nkunku, Barco, and Kwanzaa game week one last year. You didn't go Kwanzaa. Ogochukwu were obviously complete enabler as an eighth attacker. And then front three, Isak captain, Haaland vice captain, Solanke. You went Isak captain opening day. So did I. What made you go down that route? Was it just a case of Southampton opening day? It felt best.
Yeah, I think so. I think Newcastle with a home game against a newly promoted team. I think did City have Chelsea away?
Yeah, and Liverpool were at Ipswich.
Yeah, and obviously not having. If I'd had Salah, I probably would have gone down that route. But I kind of made my bed going without him. So I think Isak was. I think a lot of people did it from memory.
The decision not to start with Mo, you remember what the influence on that was?
Uh,
Is it just Haaland over him? Is it as simple as that?
I think so. I think it was. I don't like the way the team looks with both of them really in terms of it just ruins everything else. So I think at the time I just thought I'd rather have Haaland, and for the start of the season I think that was justified, but obviously it quickly changed.
So you started okay, 67 points game week one. It's fine, 1.9 million game week rank. And you captained Haaland game week two, hat trick against Ipswich, 81 points from that game week. So pretty decent start. Then wildcarded in game week three. Had that been the plan, or was it a case that you wanted to go and chase other things, or you were unhappy with what you had? Do you remember?
No, it definitely wasn't the plan. I don't think I went into the season thinking, oh, I'm definitely going to wildcard really early. I think from memory, I think Palmer spooked me was it at Wolves game week two?
Yeah, he assisted all four for Madueke, I think, if I remember correctly.
Um, I think that spooked me, so I wanted to try and get him in, and I just wasn't happy with a few in my team. So I just thought I'm quite kind of I wildcard early quite a lot, so it wasn't something that I'm
Is
against.
that a lot of value chasing as well?
A little bit. I wouldn't say that it was kind of the main factor behind it, but it was probably part of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you bought in, it will be. I mean, Raya came in, it's fair enough. Bumo in, Rogers in, Palmer in, Watkins in, João Pedro in. You'd cut Saka, you'd cut Isak. Obviously, Odegaard had got injured for Arsenal, so that might be an influence on Saka. And obviously, Arsenal was coming into those two away games against my team. Yes, you won it, Jacob. Well done. And then obviously the game at Manchester City in game week five as well. No dodgy refereeing decisions there, as I'm sure you'll acknowledge. So you made a good little gain from those transfers you made. You made nine in total. That's 17-point gain there. Pretty well. You're moving along really nicely. 67 points, 85 points, 67 points. It's going really well. You obviously haven't had a red at this stage. Then something happened in game week eight. So in game week eight, I know many of you would probably have activated your triple captainship. Anyone remember what it was? There's no point putting it in the comments because I'm about to tell you. Erling Haaland against Southampton. Was you tempted to triple captain that day?
No, I think I always want to try and wait for a double if I can with triple captaincy, or even just later in the season on a single.
So in game week seven, the end of game week seven, you were placed essentially 20k roughly. Brilliant start. As said, greens all the way through. Game week eight, game week rank of 10 million. Take some doing that. And 20 points. And the reason I really want to highlight is because I think the assumption is when someone has a great season like you think, oh, it never went wrong at any point. I'm interested to understand the mindset at that point because you can't look at your back at your team and think, oh, that was bad. But literally, nobody returned. 1 pointers from Raya, Gabriel, Robinson, Smith Rowe, and this would have been a good Arsenal fixture as well. I think it might have been Southampton, not Southampton, maybe Leicester at home.
I think it might have been
Maybe
Bournemouth away. I think it was
or was
nine.
it the Bournemouth away game? Actually, yeah, sorry, I think you're quite right. Arsenal had the Leicester Southampton home games before that. 1 pointer from Robinson and Smith Rowe, 2 pointers from Trent, Bumo, Mavididi, Palmer, Havertz, Solanke, and that Haaland captaincy. You left your two returners on the bench, Morgan Rogers and Ethan Pinnock. That's perfectly understandable why you did that. You've dropped them from 20k outside the top 100k and then game week nine dropped again to 240k. So you've got yourself in this brilliant position up to 20k game week seven, and then within two game weeks, you know what it's like at that stage. You either jump really quickly or you fall really hard. You fell to 240k. What's going through your mindset at that point, other than the obvious? I need to buy Mo Salah.
um, to be fair, with the 20-point week, I think it was at the point where it was so bad that I just laughed at that point. Like it wasn't, it didn't get me down as much as if I'd had a bad week, but still kind of done okay. I think it was just so shit that I was just accepting it. Um, but I think like I just had to kind of take a step back from it and look at my team and think I haven't got a bad team here. It's just a case that I've had a shit week.
Yeah, it's not. It's easier said than done, though, isn't it? When you have, and we've all experienced that kind of 20 something point week. It's easier said than done to move on, though. Are you someone who can remove yourself from the outcome?
A little bit, yeah. I think I resonate with you quite a lot when you say that Tottenham means a lot more to you than FPL. So I care a lot more about what's going on with Arsenal and with football than with FPL. So like that week, for example, was when we lost at Bournemouth and my head was on fucking Mars anyway. So FPL didn't really come into play. But I think I think this season more than one's gone by, I've been able to kind of step back from it and go, yeah, it was a shit week, but it's only going to get better. And I don't necessarily need to, rip my team apart to do well next week.
Did that change later in the season though, when you realised what was achievable? I don't mean that it meant more than your club, but I mean the sense of it is going to eat me if I do badly here this week. Did that hit a lot more later in the season?
A little bit, yeah. I think my kind of aim, the further it got, was on. I'm in quite a big like competitive mini league, and that was my focus was to win that. So I think the guy that came second ended up coming about 5 or 10k. So for quite a lot of the season, it was fairly close, and that was kind of what I was concentrating on rather than overall rank. But yeah, I think I was maybe playing things a bit safer in terms of not wanting to fuck up and have a really bad week when I'm doing quite well.
So you bought Mo, and you and I did very kind of similar at this point. You'd obviously had Haaland, I hadn't. I'd been spreading the funds, but I'd got to the point I obviously needed Salah in as well. And you'd obviously had the benefits of things like Palmer's 4 goal haul against Brighton as well. You bought Mo in for game week 10, captained him, 18 pointer. But as we said, it was a Tottenham boy that saved you that week, wasn't it? Who made you jump back up.
It's done.
Super Dom Solanke scored twice and got a bit of a dodgy assist against Aston Villa and was a real differential for both of us that week. And in the following week, 97 points, game week rank inside the top 10k, not just Mo Salah's 28 pointer, but also that Fabianski 9 pointer. I'm pretty sure that was the West Ham Everton draw. Anthony Robinson clean sheet, Bumo assist, 12 points from Cunha, 13 points from Vissa, 17 points from Bruno Fernandes, who you bought in that week as well. And so suddenly you've dropped from 20k down to 240k, and now you're back up at 9k
Yeah,
like that. And now the mindset shifted again, or not? Are you just still taking it in your stride at this point?
a little bit. Yeah, I think by the time I got to like 9k, I was thinking, okay, this could be quite a good season. But then obviously I've still got it quite fresh in my mind that I've had such a bad week quite recently that it could all go wrong again.
Shout out to your dog. One or two there, mate.
Three, yeah.
Three. Hello, dogs. What breed?
Jack Russell and a lab and another Jack Russell. Yeah, two Jack Russells and a lab.
Nice. So from there, game week 11, 9k, is it 7k, 9k, 15k? You're now stabilizing around here, 8k, and then up to 1.7k game week 16, which from memory, I want to say might have been the Everton Liverpool postponement
Yeah.
when Palmer went off at Tottenham. And then it never got worse for you from there. Then you was inside the top 1k. Once you're going into Christmas, your top 1k, has your targets really changed over the course of what your expectation on the season is then? Like
Potentially.
are you shifting targets? So you're like, oh, I'd still be happy with top 10k.
I think at that point I probably would have still been happy with something like that. I think because I hadn't had it before, and because I am a bit pessimistic with stuff like that, I would be thinking, okay, like this is great, but this is as good as it's going to get realistically. So I think targets probably shifted, but I don't think the way I was playing and making decisions really changed.
Yeah. Arseman went on slot
Yeah.
over that kind of the Liverpool doubles period. Was that close for you in terms of going triple captain Mo, or just really content with that decision?
I don't think it was that close. I think in hindsight, maybe I could have left it, but I think when it all got announced and obviously it was all quite new, I think it seemed like a really good opportunity to attack it with like the best team in the league. So yeah, I think it was pretty clear cut decision by the time I came to it.
Yeah, I mean, it paid well, but you didn't jump over that period. We kind of stayed fairly stationary around about this point, kind of hovering just in and outside the top 100k. And then in a blank, game week 29 jumps up to 568k. And you wildcarded in game week 31 at a position of 394th when you wildcarded. And there was a lot of debate at the time in terms of game week 30 or game week 31. I remember we were saying, try and wait a week extra if you can. Did you landed quite well out of that blank? And obviously the only chip you've used is the arse man, essentially.
Yeah, I think I think that at that point, it just worked out better for me, and I knew that I could run through 30. So I just thought it was a bit of a no-brainer, really. Like to go in 31, get another week's worth of information.
Triple captain 32, bench boost 33, free hit 34. It's fair to say you'd planned it quite well, I think. Isak triple captain, I guess, was a bit disappointing.
Yeah,
Particularly considering Newcastle got 9 across the double.
I think the second game of that was the Palace game, which was on at the
Yeah.
same time that we were playing Real Madrid. So I hadn't watched,
Okay, yeah.
and I just saw the score after and thought, oh, I'm quids in here, and it was a bit of a letdown.
I wish I'd have watched Newcastle and Palace that night. And the bench boost 33. Now, obviously, when you're in this position, it's really tough, isn't it? So, 213th game week 31's 198th to 121st. And then a free hit in game week 34, you actually went down a little bit to 142nd, despite another really good game week. How conscious of you when you're that high of how difficult it is to stay there? And are you beginning to look at other teams around you, or are you still more focused on, say, the person you're ahead of in the mini league?
Um, yeah, I'd say that was probably still what I was focusing on. I wasn't really looking at teams around me because I think the second I do that, I'm going to be making decisions and transfers that I don't want to do and that aren't what I think is right.
I mean, your game week ranks from the blank of 29 when there was just the 8 fixtures, 800k, then the following week 1.2 million, 100k, 1 million, 400k, 700k, 800k, 400k, 145k. You had a disaster 2.9 million game week 38. That run to just keep chipping away is madness. Did you feel at that point you were at the template, or were you trying to navigate away from it and target to get in the top 100?
I think I was quite template for a lot of that. And I think, like I say, once it kind of became clear that I pulled away in the mini league, I did start thinking about doing things that might push me up a bit more overall. So I think I captained Bowen against Spurs.
Don't blame you.
I think there was another captaincy that I went for that was not mad, but a little bit different. Just trying to make little differences that might push me up a little bit, but weren't massive risks.
I wouldn't say particularly come off though. I mean, you went Marmouche one week, you went Boomer another week, Watkins another week, and actually it was Isak, unfortunately, on the final day. It was better than what I got from Saka though, mate. Whereas obviously through most of the season beforehand, your captaincies had pretty much all been basically Salah, Haaland, and the odd Isak week, pretty much all through the season. So you did deviate away from that at the end of the season. Was that as much to do with Liverpool and Mo, or you think you were trying to attack different things?
A bit of both. I think a lot of it was to do with Liverpool. I think like it just became so obvious that they weren't at the races. But I think a lot of it was trying to go a bit different. That's what I tried to do in 38. Like by going Isak, like I just thought no one else is going to do it. People might still own him, but no one's going to captain him. So if he goes off, it could do.
Well,
Really
there
well.
was a bit of doubt about if he'd even play as well. So there
Yeah, and
was a certain
that's what
element of gamble for that.
I was kind of thinking he's either going to not play at all or he's going to start. And he did start. He just didn't do anything.
Well, I didn't think for a second that Saka would be a sub for Arsenal, but I completely misread the room on that one. With chips, are you normally trying to save them for that at the end?
Yeah, definitely.
Because I wish that I'd still had that free hit at the end and it might have been somewhat different for me. It wouldn't have been where you were, but yeah, it would have been so handy towards the end. But I can't see it being the fixture calendar for next year doesn't show that it's going to be much different from how it was. Would you be more open to say with a bench boost, if it exists still again, of using it earlier on in the season?
Potentially, yeah. I think bench boost I like having later in the season, but I can also see the appeal of just getting rid of it and not having to think about it and not having to plan around it, because I think it can be great, but it can also have a bit of a detrimental effect, like just having to plan your team for 1 week, but your team obviously the weeks either side of it get affected by that.
But it obviously didn't hinder you too much. Obviously helped having a triple captaincy and a free hit either side of it. But obviously you didn't have a wild card to come back off for these players. Or you did, didn't you? Wild card in game week 35. So I
Yeah,
suppose so you set up that well. Well, no, that was me wild carding game week 30. You wild carded 31 to set up for those free chips.
yeah.
So how did you still maintain such consistency in those 4 weeks after the free hit?
Fuck knows.
Like I don't know.
Yeah, I think I had just set up well and got a bit lucky in terms of no real injuries, and the players that I picked just I think like I was trying to get consistently kind of good players that were just going to tick over. Like Bowen just seemed to return every week. Like it was never massive, but it was enough to just kind of keep me where I was.
Yeah, looking at your last transfers, Bumo, Visser, Watkins. Watkins obviously for the Tottenham game in game week 37. And then Ben White, game week 38. Was that off Saliba got injured the week before, didn't he? And it was fairly obvious that Ben White was going to play. Do you have any
Yeah,
regrets on that using a defensive one at the end, or did that feel like something you had to do?
I feel like I kind of got forced into it really because I can't remember who was on my bench, but it wasn't great. It didn't, and kind of being without double Arsenal at Southampton,
Southampton.
I just thought, and you know, White's got a goal or assist in him as well. So I thought it could just as easily pay off as if I was to make a attacking transfer.
How do you feel about chips? There's so much talk at the moment about we might get something different next year. How do you feel about them?
To be honest, I wouldn't mind if they didn't change them. I don't think there's a mad. I wasn't a massive fan of assistant manager really. I think maybe it was just too big a change and required a bit too much planning in terms of the money coming out of your budget and having it active for 3 weeks. But the others, I think maybe it's just because I'm so used to them and know how they work and how to try and use them that I'm pretty content with what there is.
It's interesting now. I wonder if there's an element of that for people in terms of we don't like change, most of us. I know some people call for it, but then when the change happens, something like an assistant manager, many of us kind of push back against it. My view on it has been, yeah, I deal with things in the same way as you, but I just felt it probably wasn't right for the global appeal of the game. In the sense that what's 10 take away six, and some people can't do that by the sounds of things, unfortunately. Um, I would bin it personally, but I don't mind if they keep it, right?
Yeah, I think I'm the same. Like I think if they keep it, then so be it. But I would just prefer not to have it really.
I guess if chips went, that would change the way you played the game, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think if there were none at all, then a lot of the planning and kind of thoughts around that would just go out the window, and it becomes a lot more about targeting players and fixtures.
I wonder if that would make the game more template or less template. Because I think actually one thing I would say about the chips last year, and I know people, it's the same comments every year, it's too template at the end. It's fairly natural people are going to like diversify towards similar pool of players. But so many different chip strategies at the end of last season. You went Arseman, Slot, I went triple captain Mo Salah at that period. There were so many different things being done, it felt, in that running, even though the pool of players was obviously shrinking. I think you really got some disparities. Whereas in other years, when you've had that kind of that big double with like 10 teams doubling, it's like everyone's heading there for the bench boost, it feels like. So the variation was more there. As I've said previously, when the schedule is going to look very similar next year, with the days of having 10 teams doubling is only going to happen if something really unlikely happens. Let's cover off a few questions that we got in for you on social, Jacob. I'll start with my good buddy Mark Dorney. Says, "Do you see Haaland coming back this year as a top forward if he plays at least I'd say 80% of the games.
Uh, yeah, I think it's hard to see that he wouldn't be the top scoring forward at least. I think City themselves will have to be better than they were, and by virtue of that, I think he just inevitably will be perhaps won't hit the heights that he did 2 seasons ago, 3 seasons ago, but I think it's pretty inevitable that he'll be, if not the top scoring forward, one of the top scoring forwards.
Where would you price him and Mo, do you think?
Uh, I think Haaland, I think they could justify because he was 15 last year, wasn't he?
Mm,
I think they'd have to drop him a bit, but I wouldn't want him to go below 14.
yeah, that's what I've got in my mind.
And Salah, I think, has to be above that, really. Whether they will.
I mean, I'd price him at like 16, but people go
Yeah,
mad about
I
that.
would as well, because I just think it mixes things up so much and gives people a decision to make. But
I'm very much all for that and making the game difficult. That's the way I think it should be. If he's 14 million, I think he's still landing so many teams with that opening game week one fixture against what at the moment will look like a weakened Bournemouth, at least defensively. I mean, if Haaland came in at 15 last year and Salah's had the best FPL season of all time, what's the justification really for him not to be that?
yeah, I can't see a way in which he's not 15 or above. But it's just whether they want to price out a massive part of their kind of player base from doing it.
I think, look, I said this a lot last year, and I'm one who normally moans about the pricing, but I really loved that when Haaland came in at 15 last year. I think it was a great call. Yes, ultimately, I mean, when Haaland scored, what did he get? Nine in the first four or something? Like, who was saying that 15 million is too much at that point, right? But I think because he's capable of such hauls like this, he's got to stay really high. And I just don't really see how Mo could be much less than 15. But that said, I don't think he will be.
No,
Like I know he should be at least 15 in my mind. I don't know if there's an influence on the fact towards the end of the season, the numbers obviously calmed down a lot on whether that will rein it in a bit because obviously he was heading towards bloody 400 points, wasn't he?
yeah, I think that's the only thing I was going to say is they may use the kind of back end of the season as a bit of a justification for keeping him at 13 and a half, 14, but I prefer he was higher.
Would you have anyone else in at 10 or above?
Probably, yeah, Saka and Palmer, I think. Definitely. Apart from that, I don't know, we were talking about potentially Gyökeres before, but I don't know. I think maybe Saka Palmer. I can't really think of anyone else that justifies that kind of price.
I'd definitely throw Isak in there personally.
Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah,
I mean, I'd said going into game week one last year, I'd have paid 11 for him to start last season. I actually think that's roughly where he should be this year.
yeah. No,
Personally, because I think he is capable at his best of being a regular captaincy. Whether there's any influence this year on, for Newcastle and say Cole Palmer and Chelsea, the additional Champions League games is obviously different. I know Chelsea had Conference League last year, but Palmer wasn't even registered. That was really helpful for particularly Palmer the first part of last season. And I guess a lot of people have gone quite cold on Cole, haven't they? He scored a lovely goal for Chelsea the other night, but that was his first goal in the Club World Cup and obviously had a really disappointing end to the season, certainly at least from a fantasy perspective. I think 10 million people are talking it should be less. I don't really see that personally.
I can't get my head around that. I think just knowing what he can be at kind of any given moment. I don't know how you can have a player like that that's not priced quite highly. Because if he comes, like you were saying, if he comes in less than that, I think he just kind of goes in a lot of teams, and then you're getting a template formed quite quickly already.
Any thoughts on Verts?
I don't. What in terms of pricing?
Mm.
Mm, maybe 9.
Yeah, it
Because
feels like probably just under 10, I
yes,
think, just because it's the acclimatization of the leagues.
the thing is, you don't really know where he's going to play either at the moment for sure. I think everyone can have an idea, but until you've seen it, I think it's difficult to really know what he's going to be in terms of output.
FPL Manor wants to know in terms of the Haaland to Salah switch, did it feel like you got it at the right time?
Yeah, I think like you said earlier, it maybe could have gone a week earlier with it, But when I did it, it felt right, and it felt like it was something that I should be doing. And I think because of the pricing, it made my team stronger elsewhere as well. I think I brought in Cunha at the same time, which strengthened my team more. So yeah, I think it was a bit of a no-brainer by the time I actually got around to doing it.
Captaincy has said that until kind of that end period, you really had stuck very much Salah a lot, Isak when it looked good, Haaland really early on in the season. Is there anything you look on back on that and think you'd wish you'd done different? I mean, Chris Wood's saying, what's your take on captaincy? How often did you go against the crowd and did it contribute to where you finished?
To be honest, I think a large part of me doing quite well was down to just Salah just being kind of almost permanently captain because when I don't think I'm great at picking captains. I don't think I'm great at picking a player in any given week to do well. So when it's almost presented for me, this is Salah's just on fire. I think it made it a lot easier for me. So I don't really. The only massive regret I have captaincy wise is going Isak in 38.
Do you regret it though? I mean, there was plenty of good reasoning for that choice, as you explained.
Reason for it, but then I think looking back, like Everton's just never going to be an easy game, and the one that I was weighing it up against was Bowen at Ipswich, who obviously did quite well. So I think it kind of annoys me in that sense. But realistically, he started and played the whole game in a game that they should have been trying to win to get Champions
Yeah, I
League.
mean the result was a massive shock.
Yeah,
But yes, you're right there. I think Everton have always, well, I'd say always, but for a long time fallen into that category that you don't feel quite comfortable captain players against. Fulham's another one. It just never feels like someone's going to go off against someone like Fulham. Whereas others, like even say like Brentford, I felt like they could be targeted last year because there was a lot of goals in some of their games. Some teams feel like you can target, and some don't. Do you factor that into your thinking the opponent?
yeah, definitely. I think like had that been any other week, I wouldn't have gone Isak against Everton. I think just the fact it was 38 and people weren't going to go for him because of the injury doubt and stuff. But ordinarily, I wouldn't be looking to captain against like an Everton or those defensively strong teams. I think, like you said, even though they're better teams, kind of Brentford, Brighton at times, teams that are a bit more open, I'd be a lot more likely to captain players against those teams.
Yeah, makes sense. I like this one from Paul Clark. Play nicely here, by the way, mate. How much do you base decisions on content creator choices and thoughts versus your own stats research or eye test if you give it a percentage? Let's start with content creators. Do you pick up a lot of FPL content?
Not really, to be honest. The vast majority of it is yourselves. Not just saying that either. I
I
think
mean, you did with my mini league, so it was fairly obvious that you did listen.
I think part of that is the fact that your discussions, a lot of it's FPL, but a lot of it's just football related. Whereas I find the kind of nothing against it, but a lot of the FPL content is just quite saturated and all kind of is a bit similar. Whereas stuff like the content you produce, a lot of it's focusing on tactics and how teams set up as well as the FPL side of things. So I think that's what interests me more than just FPL content. If I'm say like playing a chip or wildcarding, I'd probably consume more content than I normally would because there might be things I haven't thought about in terms of fixtures or rotation, stuff like that.
That's interesting that you've done so well and you're thanking me for it. Cheers, mate. Much appreciated. I get a lot of people say that to me, but I can never help myself with my own team. It's interesting though that I think people are always quick to kind of bash at like content creators. Like, oh, people are advising the same things. I think ultimately, good players are probably going to recommend the obvious quite often, right? And I'm going to guess from what you're saying there, you're probably not stats heavy.
Not really, no. I think like I don't go actively looking for it, if that makes sense. So like if I come across stats that I think are going to help me, then I'll use them. But I'm not sat during the week kind of looking at XG and shots on target, stuff like that. Like it's not really how I make decisions. But if I was to, I'm not going to dismiss something because of stats. I'm not going to look at it and say, oh, their XG is really good, I'm not going to take that into account.
Would you though, if you're looking at a hypothetical decision between, two 7 million midfielders and you can't make your mind up, would you go looking for stats to help with that decision? Or are you just going to make an instinctual call or something on the fixtures, for example?
I think I'd go fixtures over anything normally. Sometimes just a gut feeling. Sometimes I'll look at stats, but I'd say it's pretty rare that I make a 50-50 decision based off stats.
So you don't use models or anything like that?
Yeah, no,
That's interesting because that's obviously big topic at the moment. I can't check how my bloody team did on FPL last year, but I can see what Copilot by Microsoft might do. As my patrons will probably already know, I tried to run something on Copilot for one of my videos and it cannot do it. But what do you think about that FPL introducing AI onto their website?
I'm not surprised. I think it was kind of inevitably going to happen at some point, and it might be quite a cool thing that people do try and use. I'll have a look at it and I'll see what it suggests and how different that is from what I'm thinking. But I don't think it's something that I'll ever rely on or use religiously.
No, I'm intrigued to see it. I have nothing against it in any way whatsoever. The idea of them giving their player base a tool that they might not be otherwise aware of, and it might do good things in terms of people then look for review and other things, and it might bring some traffic their way and stuff. My view is very much that I just, and I think you might be a little bit like me in this sense, Jacob. I enjoyed the process of just working it out for myself, and I've got no one else to blame when I make the wrong decisions, basically.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think the payoff when things go well and you've kind of come to your own conclusions and made your own decisions is a lot better than when you've essentially been told what to do.
Yeah, I mean, people can use the models however they want, etc. I think it's worth saying and acknowledging that I definitely am not saying. I always say play it your way, but it's not necessarily the right way. And I think we have to accept that AI is becoming a much bigger part of this game and life anyway. And the advice probably would be that people should look at it. I think if they don't, if it's not for them, it's fine. But I think people probably should look at the tools that are out there and see if it can give them an edge, because that's what everyone's looking for is an edge. And for me, it's something. Oh, I might have spotted this with the fixtures, or I've seen this player play in this certain position. It's more that sort of thing for me. Before we finish, just want to touch on title race next year. Um, how hopeful are you?
I'm hopeful. I'm definitely hopeful, but I don't think it can extend to much more than hope at the moment, especially considering obviously we don't know what we're going to do further in the window. But I'd like to be positive and kind of we are looking like we're clicking into gear and signing players we should be signing now. But I worry that the strength of Liverpool and City, we've never really been in a title race with two teams, obviously recently. So I worry that just they look a bit stronger. But I think I don't think we can be dismissed. I think we will inevitably have a better season than we did last season in the league.
I don't think we can know that either way. I mean, you tailed off at the end because the distance was so big, and there was obviously a focus on the Champions League as well. I guess yes, I would be surprised if you didn't get more points next year than last year, but also I wouldn't be surprised if someone got more than what Liverpool got last year and didn't win it, for example.
Yeah,
Do you expect City to come back strong? I'm guessing from what you're saying there, you do.
I do. I don't foresee it being kind of the City of old in terms of racking up 90 plus points or whatever. But I think they will have a better season than they did last year. And they only finished 3 points behind us last season. So,
Yeah, gap was bigger than that, really, though, wasn't it?
yeah, it was. And we kind of pissed it up the wall a little bit the further we got into the Champions League. But I think they will be stronger. But I think I'm quite interested to see because I think the three teams, us, City, and Liverpool, are all going to be at a fairly similar level. I don't think there's like a clear outstanding team at the moment.
I think Liverpool are changing quite a bit, and there was obviously concern this time last year in terms of were they changing enough, and obviously it worked out well for them. Now they're improving the team, but it doesn't mean it will click where you've got to go on runs of winning 7, 8 games in a row, and you didn't really have that last year. I'm not convinced that City being back up there is a certainty. I think how Rodri is will have a large bearing on City if he can return to the player that he was before, and they can get 30 plus games out of him. That would obviously make a huge difference. And also, it wasn't just Rodri; they did have other really bad injury issues at certain stages as well. So Liverpool, there's a bit of adaptation. I don't think we can be sure. Yourselves, I think we know what we get now in terms
Yeah.
of what's on the tin. It's just, are these players like Zubamendi, Gyökeres, if it happens, is that going to be the what edges you over the line? City could come back and storm it, by the way. I just don't think it's a certainty. Whereas you and Liverpool, I think, will definitely be challenging. Do you see anyone else like a Chelsea or Newcastle making a challenge?
No, I think those two teams with the Champions League factored in as well. I just can't see them having the consistency to, like you say, kind of get even 6, 7 wins on the bounce. I just and the kind of, I know Chelsea have got strength and depth, but I still don't look at their team and think that's a title challenging, let alone winning team.
Yeah, we've spoken about it recently in some transfer window shows, like a signing that will move the needle a little bit for them. Feels like it's they just keep buying players. Don't they? It feels like buy and sell and selling off their team to you by the looks of it. Jacob, absolute pleasure. Really, really enjoyed that, mate. What's your target for next season now then?
For top 55.
Do you, do you think that this season might have any form of like dampening on next season for you?
Um,
It's obviously going to be so difficult to repeat. It's not to say you can't do it, but it
yeah,
would be
no,
madness to beat it, wouldn't it?
I I don't think so. I think I just have to go into it and be realistic and think that I'm not going to hit this kind of height again. I might do at some point, but probably not the season after. I think like I can potentially use it to kind of learn how which style of play kind of suits me and how to approach things. I think I will learn from it, but I think I just have to be realistic and know that it's not going to be like the amazing kind of year that this has been.
What would be your main target? Is it mini league or overall?
Um, Potentially mini league because I think if I was to do well in mini leagues, then overall is going to be good. But overall, I think like top 50k, anything like that now, I feel like is a pretty good rank given the amount of people to play.
Yeah, it's getting harder, and I'm sure it will be very testing for everyone again next season. Very much thank you again for your time, Jacob. Anything you want to plug before we finish?
No, no,
Don't say Arsenal, mate.
I don't need to plug that.
I will plug tomorrow's podcast. Tom Med is joining me for a discussion on Brentford. We've obviously had a bit of a summer of change. My club's nicked their manager, so I'd laugh at Tom for a change. That's available for you tomorrow. And a reminder to everyone as well, all the content that we publish on Patreon between July the 7th and July 17th is free. All you have to do is hit the Patreon link in the bio and sign up as a free member. You do not have to pay any money. The podcast will be free over the duration of that period. It just leaves me to say thanks very much, Jacob. As always, everyone, be nice to each other. And when it comes round again, play it your way. Cue music, please, man child.